With the mission to keep as many men on as many guns for as long as possible, we called him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Seibert.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. This is a chance where myself, as a veteran, a combat veteran, gets to tell their story, bring up subject matter that basically talks about my life or situations in my life, directions that I'm going in my life. But it also allows other vets to tell their stories, and this is combat stories, however that might be told, raw or unraw. Uh, it's told here sometimes. It's also a chance for our sponsor supporters, volunteers to get on here and tell this story. You know, a quick thank you to SitchRadio.com for producing my show and putting this whole thing together. And, the show just allows for a lot of people to come on here and tell their story in a certain way. Today, I got Angela Maddox on deck. She is Chris Raahauge's daughter, a great friend of Warrior Built and the PTSD Foundation, great friend of mine, passed away a year ago in an unfortunate off-roading accident on New Year's weekend. And, thanks, Angela, for being here. I definitely look forward to your story on your father and stuff, and we'll get into that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being here. And Shelter for Change is still in effect. For those of you who don't know, Shelter for Change is basically a sober living facility and program set up to kind of really thrive in job opportunities and things to keep moving forward for positive direction of these guys that are dealing with drugs, alcohol, and they're coming off of that. Now, that's been an opportunity and a place for us to send our combat vets as well. And Chris, your father has always been there to kind of direct me to help our guys into certain directions when I need to go that way.
Yeah.
But thanks for being here. I know we were going to have you on a year ago to kind of memorialize your dad in a lot of ways. Very difficult for you at that time, but I was lucky to have a show with that in regards. But it's so good that you came on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was something the other day. I was like, I need to call Aaron. I know we talked about doing this, a while ago, and I did need that time. I definitely was not ready. I had a hard time in the beginning to talk about my dad past tense, talk about him like he was, so I was like, how do I go on a podcast and talk about him in that way? I just wasn't there yet, but yeah, here we are. Here we are.
Yeah. And your dad was a bigger than life character, great person, awesome direction, and full of love and just full gears to the front. And I loved him.
Oh yeah, that's him for sure. Yeah. I feel like you either loved him or hated him, but even then, I don't feel like a lot of people even really disliked him. Or if they did, maybe they didn't show it, But yeah, my dad was my dad through and through from the time I was a little girl too. He's just very solid dude, and stayed true to who he is. He was just so authentically himself, no matter where he was, who he was talking to. And it was like that my whole life, just like you said, like larger than life, which has been very challenging, because it's a void that's really irreplaceable, and I think it's probably like that for anybody who loses someone so special to them. But it's been like that for so many people because he meant so much to so many people,
Yeah, and I mean, you got to grow up with him being like this, right? And so you've had to kind of learn to share your dad with a lot of people in special ways.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what that kind of feels like, or did it feel like it took something away from you as a kid, or did it
Not,
give you a
yeah.
way better scope of life?
I think it kind of set the path maybe for me to want to help a lot of people. We grew up because I have siblings. I have an older sister and a younger brother. And I mean, we grew up with my dad bringing, you know, homeless people home, or people who, you know, alcoholics and drug addicts that wanted help. You know, he would put them on our couch. That's how we grew up, you know. And we grew up in, you know, my dad being very involved in Alcoholics Anonymous and going to meetings and the fellowship. And so he always had a big group of people around him. And then, you know, and then it was sponsees, you know, other men that he would walk through the program that were always around him. And it was just kind of what it was. I honestly feel like the the biggest thing would be going out with him. If, you know, if we would go to like the grocery store or something, he never really knew how long you were going to be out, because he'd run into 5 or 6 different people that he knew, you know. But it never made me feel like it took anything away from me, because if I wanted to be involved, I could be, you know. So it was very like, you know, he wasn't gone all the time. It was where it was most of the time at our house. You know, he'd have, like I said, sponsees come over, or people come over, or I'd go to the meetings with him. I grew up going to work with my dad, whatever business he had going on at the time. I would hop in the car with him and go, you know, take off for a day and go to work with my dad and stuff like that. So I feel like we were very, very tight knit unit, my family, you know. And, you know, my dad, gave up his sobriety when I was about 13, and it took him 7 years to get back into sobriety. So that was very challenging, for all of us, you know. My dad in active addiction is also larger than life, but in like not a good way. You know, so that was a lot for us, going through that. But you know, it took him 7 years to get back, and then once he was back in the program and back into meetings and the fellowship. And he did that really well. He did the fellowship really well. The meetings after the meetings, talking to somebody. My dad had a way about him that made you feel special. And it's not because it was a front. Maybe sometimes it was, but most of the time it was genuine from his heart, because he cared about what that person was going through, you know. So he always had a way of people kind of opening up to him and talking to him and really getting down to like what's going on, you know, which is a
Yeah,
gift.
that's some, and that, like you said, when you go out to the store and you wouldn't know how long you'd be, because he would give that time
Hmm.
to authentically have a great conversation with everybody that he comes in contact with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a real conversation.
Oh, it
it's
would be,
not a sales pitch. It's a
yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah. It's his real life, like the real shit, if I can say that, the real,
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. This
yeah.
is on
Yeah. Yeah, it would be, I mean, hours. I mean, hours. I know if my mom's listening right now, my dad would talk for hours. He'd be up in the garage talking to this guy forever, or oh yeah, it was a thing. It was a thing. The gift of gab. My dad had the gift of gab. Yeah.
yes.
And just
Yeah,
a, you know.
it comes with that, to have the gift of gab, you got to be authentic.
Mhm.
And because people can read that very well. I mean, we all can.
Yeah.
And I think, when you add the amount of care that it takes to kind of really move forward in life, I think there's a lot of that lacking in today's like
Mm.
social interactions. I mean, people care kind of in general, but not like down to earth. Like they
Mm.
give that time and that authentic, that care, that concern, that help and support.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Yeah. Yeah, he was just amazing. My dad was just amazing all the way around. I you know, always called him my hero. I mean, from the time I was young, that's what I called him. And he was just a badass, you know. I felt very protected and safe with my dad my whole life, you know. Um that's just how he made us all feel. He made my mom feel that way, my sister and my brother. He's just a safe place and a protector for us, you know. Um, and he was just a badass. And like you're saying, I don't feel like they make them like that anymore. I mean, maybe they do. It's just, you know, he was just, I don't know. I think he was unique, you know, but I'm biased opinion, you know, I just thought the world of my dad, really. I mean, you know, he had things. We all have our things, you know, he wasn't perfect, but.
Right. And talk about how's everybody doing? I mean, it's a year's gone by plus a couple months here. You know, talk about where you guys were last year at this time, and the focus that kept you moving forward and the directions that you're going, and talk about the direction for Shelter for Change. And that was, I mean, that's your dad.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, we're all doing okay. I think we're just processing, you know, we're just processing the way that we all need to process. We are all very close, me, my brother, my mom, and my sister. Um, some of the guys at Shelter for Change, there's still guys that lived there that knew my dad, had a relationship with my dad. So that's really cool. So there's a core group of men that are still there, which I think is a beautiful thing. And you know, so I think we're all just processing the best way that we know how. Like, we've never gone through something like this, and you know, a traumatic experience is the part that I'm talking about. You know, the trauma behind how his accident and how it happened. And you know, I can't relate it to losing a parent to, you know, cancer or an illness. I don't know, that's not my story, but I'm sure it's hard either way. But so abruptly like that, and it's, you know, it's thrown us for a loop. It's that day it was New Year's Eve, you know, and that day is just kind of a tough day. It's going to be a tough day for us, I think, for a long time, you know. And I think that we're all
yeah.
sense of that too. Like, it's going to rattle us for a little while, you know. I know for me, it's just kind of made me really step in more with my mom in Shelter for Change. I know I've always been a part of Shelter for Change from the time it started. You know, I was there for whatever my dad and my mom needed, anything that they needed. And and then, you know, my life got kind of busy. I have 3 kids, and my oldest is in sports, and, you know, my middle is in sports. And so I had to kind of, you know, I had to take care of my family. And so I wasn't there as much this last, I'd say the last year my dad was here with us. You know, I wasn't there as much. But it's funny, it was probably about a month before he passed, I actually went over there and we sat down and we got back into like social media and the things that I could do to help Shelter for Change. And we talked, you know, about doing a meditation once a week there. I was like, hey, Dad, I would like to offer this. What do you think? And he's like, come to the house, come to a house meeting and ask the guys if they would be interested in a meditation class once a week, or group that I would host. And so we did that. And he's like, all right, let's do it. He goes, let's let's do it after New Year's. Let's start it the Tuesday after New Year's. And of course, there's been many times where I thought to myself, damn, if I would have just pushed for it to, I would have been able to do a guided meditation with my dad if I would have just done it before New Year's. You know, those are one of the things that kind of are still kind of there. But and when he asked the guys in the house, because that's how my dad runs, that's how he is with Shelter. Very open with the men there, very involved with the men there. You know, I mean, my mom and my dad have a camper on site. That's where they're at. They're there. They're in it. You know, they Shelter for Change is not just a flop house or a place where people go and pay rent and whatever. They're involved. You know, they get to know everyone that walks in the door, and that's just that gift that we were talking about with my dad. You know, that part of him.
Right. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's entwined, you know, and you lived you get to live your life around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
and sometimes it bothered him. You know, sometimes he hated it, but most of the time he didn't. It's just kind of who he was. That was his niche. You know, it's kind of like I said, the fellowship and the relationships built in Alcoholics Anonymous and helping another alcoholic was his niche. And what he used to always say was, I remember they didn't give up on me. Like when he got clean and sober after that 7 years, there was a group of guys who didn't give up on him, you know, who stuck it out and, you know, walked him through the program. And so I remember him saying that a lot was, you know, what if they would have given up on me, you know, so I'm not going to give up on, you know, the next person. And, so anyway, so fast forward, I've just kind of stepped in, as much as I can. I like to be there a minimum of 3 days a week. Most weeks it's, you know, 3 days or more. Some weeks it's less, just depending on what I have going on here. My mom is Heffa, you know, she's the head of Shelter for Change. And, I just love my mom a lot. Ugh, I just love her so much. Yeah, she's like my best friend, you know, and that's really the relationship I had with my dad too, even though we didn't always see eye to eye, you know. We had our things, you know, but he just very, very close, tight knit with my parents, you know. And I think part of the reason is too, is I went through my own addiction. You know, I have 10 years clean and sober. And, you know, I went through a period where I was not with my family and I caused a lot of wreckage, and I was out writing my story, you know, and a lot of heartache and a lot of things that were caused when I was out. And, when I got clean and sober, you know, I made a living amends. And so, you know, even then we were close, you know, it was very heart wrenching going through that, you know, for especially my parents, you know, but yeah, so my mom, you know, so Shelter for Change is still there, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. I feel like, you know, not only are we my dad's legacy as his children, but I feel like Shelter for Change, he set it can't be duplicated. Shelter for Change is just different. It just is. It's just what it is, you know, and it's more of like a family feel. You know, I'm up there with my 5-year-old all the time. Like my 5-year-old runs around the house, you know, we really try to, you know, make everybody feel comfortable and get to know everybody there. And, you know, so it's still running. And even when my mom is ready to say that she wants to step away, I know my sister wants to step in. My brother is here, you know, so we'll keep it going.
Nice. And talk about it. Shelter for Change, sober living facility. How many people do you have on deck? Talk about some of the programs. Obviously, hopefully you're doing the meditation deal. That sounds like a rad process for sure.
Back up. I took a little bit of a break, but I did ask the guys just recently if they wanted to start that again, and they keep asking about it. So that'll be something that we'll probably do maybe once a month. Yeah. So Shelter for Change is a 19-man. Well, we have 19 beds, but we have house managers that are there, so we don't want to count that. It's about 15, 16 man sober living. It's a nonprofit sober living. My dad's vision for Shelter for Change was, a lot of the times, especially when you're on the streets and you're dealing with active alcoholism and addiction, you don't have the funds to get you into a place right away. And so my dad and my mom's vision has been being able to scholarship every person that comes in for their first 30 days. That's kind of the vision as a whole, you know, that they have for Shelter for Change. So we encourage alcohol AA meetings. It's actually mandatory. We obviously do the drug testing and everything like that. We always talk to anyone who wants to come in the house. We talk to them, get their story, find out, hey, you know, what's going on? You know, what have you been struggling with? We share my story, my dad's story, and just really get to know where they're at and see if we can even meet their needs, you know, and if we're a good fit for them and they're a good fit for us. You know, and my dad got clean and sober based on the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what worked for him. That is what worked for me. That's what works for a lot of people. And so it's based around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a mandatory 3 AA meetings a week. We have one in-house. And then we actually take them to an outside meeting, which is so important because a lot of the guys, when they come in, it's a safe place, which is great, right? It's a safe place, but we really try to encourage them to find the fellowship outside of the house as well and really build those relationships in the meetings and stuff like that because we've seen it work. We've seen it work. I mean, we were just talking about my dad. That was his niche. That was his thing. Like the fellowship and helping the other alcoholic was really, you have some people in Alcoholics Anonymous who are very like, know the big book like the back of their hand, or, they're very much this, they're very much that. And my dad really was like the fellowship and helping the other alcoholic was just his jam, so, anything that, we believe a lot in, volunteer work. We believe in service work. So anytime there's something going on, people will call us. Hey, even if it's my dad's helped women move their house, people move, and there's stuff my dad's done. I don't even know because he's done so much, but yeah, we really believe in keeping the guys kind of busy, keeping their feet moving so their head's not moving as much and really trying to give them the tools they need to stay clean and sober.
Right. And he had a business for that too, right? Which
Yeah.
gave the guys a job opportunity. Do you
Mhm.
guys still have that with the wrapping of the cars and
Oh,
stuff? Huh?
yeah. No, unfortunately, it was the first thing we kind of had to let go of once he.
Yeah, because it's a hard deal, right?
Yeah, it was something we had to kind of like, look at and see. My dad was the machine. He he was there. He would go there, the wrap place that we had, he'd be there every day. He'd be there and and so I'm really just trying to channel my inner Christopher Raahauge lately. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? And I think that's where that came from. I'm like, I need to call Aaron. Okay, I need to make an appointment with this person. I need to do this because the guy woke up and was on his phone from 4:30 to like, I don't know, whatever time he would finally just pass out on his chair. So he was just a machine and he just, so, but yeah, we don't, have that, which is unfortunate because I know his vision for that was to give them work and opportunities, training,
Right.
like training for wrapping or tinting windows or whatever it was, which I don't know, maybe that'll come back into our field at some point. I don't know, but we also, there's a lot of guys in the house too. So like as far as work, um, it's easy to find work right now. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And that's an important factor, right, for these guys to not stay stagnant in their lives, to engage. And like after you said the 30 days that you guys grant them that ability, then it's expected that they go out and do something with themselves and get themselves moving in a positive direction with work,
Yeah.
as well as still maintaining the AA meetings and staying sober and all this stuff. So that's a great model, for anybody. I think
Yeah.
it's really amazing, that you even have that opportunity. I know Chris was always like, "Hey, if any of your guys ever need something, if they need some housing, let me know." And fortunately, I didn't really need any of that
Yeah.
as of yet, but
Yeah.
the fact that it existed for our combat vets was really cool.
Okay.
And when Chris would come down, I mean, he still supported them. I mean, you guys had the food pantry piece going on where he would get all this food all the time, and he was like, "Hey, man, come down here and grab some food. I'll even deliver it to Warrior Built." He would bring it down to Warrior Built, and so a lot of the guys subsidized their families with some of that stuff and these
Yeah.
opportunities. So he
Right.
still helped out, even those that, you wouldn't even know he's still helping out
Right.
in all kinds of other directions and
Yeah.
community involvements. And yeah.
Yeah. when we first were doing the food, the food donations, I mean, my mom and him on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think, were the days where, and that's a part of what the guys did at the house at Shelter for Change. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're doing the food. That's what we're doing. You know, it gives them something to do, and it also gives them, you know, and it's good because it's a part of giving back. You know, so they can get out of their shit, you know, and you know, help someone else. You know, that's huge. But yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays, any families, any local families or anybody who needed food, we would do a blast. He would do lives on Facebook, and there would be families that would come and you know, and get food. I mean, they would come if we were running it 2 times a week, they were coming 2 times a week. He was just, yeah, we don't have the food donation anymore. That used to be a part of Shelter for Change, but we don't have that
Yeah,
right
and
now.
it went away because of bureaucracy, unfortunately. And that's the thing, right? There's all this bureaucracy. It's like you know, we have all these rules and regulations in America that sometimes restrict our ability to help.
Exactly.
Uh and and sometimes it doesn't make too much sense,
No,
but
it's totally backwards. It's
it's
like, mhm.
it's a rough deal. And that's a, you know, you can't care too much because bureaucracy gets in the way.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so shelter's still going. We and it's not going anywhere. I think
It
it's
is.
going to expand. If anything, that's kind of my mission right now. My mission is how to, you know, expand Shelter for Change. I'm thinking of little fundraising ideas, you know, volunteer work that the guys can get involved in, and just keep it going.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so what do you do for Shelter for Change the most? What's your passion in it, and what direction do you take with what you're doing?
Like, what do I do right now in the house?
Yeah, you
Uh, I
marketing,
check all the chores. Okay.
all
So,
the chores.
yep, I go in the house and I make sure that they're doing everything that they need to be doing. And then if they're not, they get a write up. No. Yeah, I just kind of am there for any added support, really. Anything. They're, you know, if my mom needs me for this or if they need me for that, I'm there to take care of it. I'm on the board and I can't remember my title, but it's basically, you know, to be the voice of the alcoholic or an addict, like an advocate. You know, so I really try to get to know all the guys that come through the house and just, hey, how you doing? You know, so I'm always there and I'm there for really anything that they need. I take any of the calls. I do a lot of the social media. Um, you know, so anybody who's looking, you know, for sober living, they'll either call my phone. We actually still have my dad's number. It's still active, so we still use his number too. So the calls go to his phone or my phone. And yeah, I think I'm really just stepping in to be more of like fill the shoes of my dad, which is impossible because I can't do what he did. I can't be on my phone from 4:30 to, you know, and like make moves. I still have kids, you know, so it's really impossible for me to do that. But I do know that I'm trying to fill his shoes in a way of like keeping shelter, you know, going. And I want our vision to be, I want his vision to be in place so we can, you know, bring it to life and keep it that way. You know, I want to do what I have to do to make sure that we are able to scholarship every single person who calls for the first 30 days. You know, we don't want to have to turn down anybody, you know.
Right.
So, yeah, so I'm
And
kind of, yeah.
that's amazing. I know it's a very hard place for you to be in his shoes. I get it. Hey, talk about uh legends never die. That's something you're going with, right? And you asked me if I'd incorporate that in today's title, and it's totally true because Chris is a legend in my eyes as well. Obviously, the Raahauge name is a legend in the community anyway. Shooting range to all kinds of different things that people are aware of.
Yeah.
Talk about talk about that a little bit, what that means to you. And
Well, it was okay. it was always cool growing up with the last name Raahauge just because everybody knew who we were, especially us girls. It was me, my sister, and Lindsay, which is my aunt, which is my dad's sister. But, it was just cool because everybody knew who we were. But, it wasn't always just because of the ranch and the shooting range. It was sometimes because they knew my dad to be a crazy motherfucker, or my uncle, or don't mess with them because of whatever. That's just how we grew up, and of course the ranch it's funny because the ranch has a totally different like significance to me than like going out there and shooting guns, for me, it's very much reminds me of my dad or my mom. My mom goes down there and takes walks with their dog Marley once a week, so for me, it's when I'm there, and I was actually just there the other day, I just smell and breathe my dad. It's just, that's, but yeah, like when he was the range master, I would go down there and I would just go hang out with him for the day and get on his golf cart and just watch him do his thing. And, he taught my son, my oldest son, how to shoot. Obviously he taught me how to shoot. I don't know how good I am at it anymore, but, he was just a badass. But the ranch is cool, but it's not like, I don't know, it just has a different meaning to me than like it being a shooting range. It's just all my dad, yeah.
Right.
Memories of like being out there with him, we had another funny, actually, we have another side of the shooting range. It's called the Pheasant side. And my dad was doing an AA fireside meeting there every Thursday for years. We would have an AA meeting out there, so when I think of the ranch, I think of things like that. I think of the fireside meeting, and I think of just, but it's cool.
Right. And it's just amazing, all these things that you're talking about. I mean, a lot of people in the community will be able to relate, and they're going to have some from your perspective is really cool. Is there any last things that you want to talk about? And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, they can do it through me. Feel free to hit me up, but feel free to put your information out there, and we'll get that out there to anybody that wants to get a hold of you as well.
Well, I think just based off of what you do and what you stand for, which I think is amazing, and I just want to honor you in that. I think that's awesome that you're an added support in there for vets who may need it or feel lost or whatever. If there's anyone out there that hears this that's struggling with alcoholism or addiction, you're not alone. There's help out there. There's resources. And sometimes the heaviest and the hardest part for us can be making that call. So anytime I get a call from somebody, I honor them in that too. Like, I know that this was the hardest part, picking up that phone and saying, I need help. It keeps us out there for a long time because we just can't do it, So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, thanks, Angela. It's been absolutely amazing to have you on the show. Thanks for briefing this. If you ever want to come back on, talk about anything, we'll get you back on, because it's just an incredible piece, and you're definitely a valued asset to everything that I do, on top of what is needed in this world. So thanks for caring so much, and thanks for sharing your dad with us a little bit today.
For having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. This is Aaron Seibert. Lucky to be alive after hit with a mortar round, April 2006. It's great things to have people on here that are trying to make a difference somewhere, somehow. I know this show has the ability to touch some hearts and meet somebody somewhere, somehow, and offer them a chance to kind of figure something out. Thanks a lot, Brian Colburn. Brian, for doing my show with Combat Vet Vision and here on SitchRadio.com. And thanks to the support that I have through Warrior Built Foundation, the PTSD Foundation. Thanks for Shelter for Change for their support in the drugs and alcohol piece. Any message before we go, Brian? Hit it up. But hey, this is Aaron Seibert signing off. Strength and honor out.